You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all. A thriving business, deep self-love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bold Hearts, Big Moves. Okay, so, I just barely finished recording a episode for my other podcast, The Other Side of the Struggle, Healing from Betrayal Trauma. And, talking about like safety and like one of the very first boundaries that creates safety is the boundary of becoming your own best friend or being your own best friend. And, if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a minute, you know that one of the things I talk about is how important boundaries are. And how boundaries are all about what we choose to be and how we choose to act and how we choose to show up, right? And that can mean that we can have really solid, unbreakable boundaries, or that means that we can have some really leaky boundaries. But today for you, I wanted to talk about how money mirrors safety and not worth. Even though, you guys have probably heard me talk about this on this podcast, how our self-worth language and our money language are actually almost one and the same. Like they mirror each other almost perfectly. And you probably have heard me say that. But it's one of the things that we really need to understand is part of the reason why our self-worth needs to maybe say things like, I feel so worth it, I feel like $1 million, etc., right? Is because in order for us to have self-worth, we have to feel safe enough to see it, right? And here's the thing that I think is really interesting, and it's been true for me, and I would imagine it's been true for anyone else listening in. If ever we say something along the lines of, money is really tight, money is hard, I don't know how I'm going to afford this, etc. I know for a fact when I'm worried about money, or when I'm scared about not being able to pay a bill, or I'm scared about anything money-wise, the last thing I'm focusing on is my worth. I'm not focusing on my safety. As a matter of fact, I'm focusing on how unsafe I feel. And so that's why I want to talk today about our safety and how safety or money follows when we're safe, and not necessarily our worth, because you really can't put a dollar sign on that, right? I mean, it's a whole lot like saying, because we're a child of God, like, can you put a price tag on him? Would you sell God? Right? We can't do it because we are very we're very well aware. Oh my goodness, that was a tongue twister, wasn't it? We're very well aware of his worth and his power. But yet we tend to put a price tag on us. And maybe, just maybe, that's not us feeling safe. When we realize instead that money actually can come to us, then maybe we start to feel a little bit more safe. So the first thing I want to do is disrupt some of the shame that is in your story, okay? Because number one, truly, like, say you stop paying that credit card bill, and I'm not saying I want you to, okay? Like, let's definitely work with integrity, okay? But maybe you're not able to pay anything more than $25 a month and your payment is like $250 or something like that, okay? What is the worst thing that's going to happen? Maybe you might find that you need to restructure some things. You might decide that you want to work with a credit union instead and see if they maybe can take your loan, right? But here's actually what happened to me. A couple years ago, I found myself in roughly about $35,000 in debt. And I'm going off of memory here, okay? And I wasn't able to make any of the payments. The most I could do was maybe $5, $6 on each one of my loans. And no matter, even though I kept putting that forward, the bills kept piling up and I kept getting late notices and I kept getting debt collectors calling me, etc. And it wasn't that I was ignoring anything. I actually was talking to the debt collectors, explained to them the situation I was in, that I had every intention of paying them, but I just didn't know when I'd be able to. And finally, what ended up happening is I started getting really, really scared. And when I got scared, it seemed that everything kind of tended to fall apart and unravel for me. And I couldn't focus on anything except for that looming big number ahead of me. But I had to realize a really important truth in that moment, and that was focusing on the debt wasn't helping pay it off. However, focusing on what I could create, now that was different. So I ended up still just paying very, very tiny amounts, like way less than the minimum. Sometimes I wasn't able to pay anything and had to skip payments completely. And what ended up happening is because I chose to focus on what I could create and just kind of decided to lean into my creation and loving the creative energy I was feeling, I ended up making in 1 month about $75,000 in sales and paid off the entire debt with extra in my pocket in literally a month. Just completely killed it, completely gone. Now, here's the other thing that was really interesting. It also taught me to be very smart with my money. See, when I got into debt, I thought I would be able to pay that off. And it ended up that I wasn't able to and was caught up in some really, really interesting situations. But when I paid it off, I realized that I'd actually broken some of my boundaries. See, we talk about like 7 different types of boundaries, right? We have a time boundary, have a money boundary, energy boundary, sexual boundary, physical boundary, the talking and listening boundary, right? I actually did those backwards, but my time, I would say my money boundary, I really had to sit down and really think about that one because that was not what I wanted my money to do. That was not how I wanted my money to be. And it felt like I couldn't be honest. And honesty is a really big deal to me. And so I decided in that moment that one of my boundaries would be that if I wanted something, I would front load it. first. So instead of going into large amounts of debt, I would front load the cost instead of going into debt for it again. Now, that has meant that I've also had to take some other steps and other precautions moving forward, meaning that I have been trying to save. I had to get rid of some things that were causing my money to leak out of my account. So that way I wasn't able to pay for things. Like I had to really restructure myself money wise. And what has ended up happening is I've been able to keep my debts very low, and my income coming in more consistently. And I'm still working on a lot of things, because, like when I talk about unbreakable boundaries and like one of my favorite boundaries, and it's the very first boundary I teach my clients, is the boundary of becoming your own best friend. Like be your own best friend, right? Make that decision. What does a best friend do? How do they act? I did a whole podcast about this in The Other Side of the Struggle, Healing from Betrayal Trauma, right? Um, and how that boundary creates safety inside of ourselves, right? But here's the thing, like being my own best friend made me have to really sit back and consider like how I had been out of alignment with myself. Who did I want to be money-wise? How did I want to act around money? Who did I want to be? And how did I want to create safety? How did I want to feel safe? And what actions do I take to feel safe around money? See, I used to think that if I wanted something, I needed to just like dive in and have faith and do it, right? That's not the best way to approach money. Instead, what I decided to do was, one of my new boundaries that I'm working on right now is doing what I say I'm going to do when I said I was going to do it. And that's actually proved to be kind of hard. It's proved that I've needed to take less, like put less on my schedule, and it's caused me to have to restructure some things as well. And boundaries will do that; they'll cause you to restructure, right? But for me, I wanted to feel safe around money, and so if I was going to make an investment, I had to know that I would be able to cover the cost of whatever investment and how I was going to do it. And see, that's been really good for me in a lot of ways because it's caused me to really think about my own actions, my own behavior, and again, my own boundaries. Like, how am I going to act? How do I want to feel around money? Okay. So, and that's created a lot of safety for me. Safety to be able to create in a way that feels authentic to me. And because of that authentic creation, money has started coming in. I've also sat down and I've done some prayers and some covenants and some commitments with God around money. And crazily enough, money is so working much, 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 much better for me. So money responds to safety, not self-judgment. And see, when I was feeling so bad and so angry and so unsafe around money, there was actually a lot of self-judgment in that message. A lot. Like how irresponsible I could be, or how I wasn't doing enough, or like it just kept happening, and I truly felt like my nervous system actually did crash. It wasn't a good thing. And because that lack energy and focusing on what I lack actually was the voice of my self-judgment really, really loud. And the thing is money doesn't respond to that. It responds to feeling safe. It responds to feeling open. It responds to clarity. And self-judgment and fear do not create clarity. They create cloudiness. And it does that because we don't want to be seen when we're in fear. We're afraid if we're seen, then what could possibly come our way? What could possibly happen? And so we energetically shut ourselves off from everything. So receiving requires regulation. It requires us regulating our nervous system, and, and regulation comes from taking a look at our money boundary and saying, okay, this is how I want my money to work for me. This is how I want to create money. And this is who I want to serve, right? When we're receiving, we have to be regular in some way, right? Meaning consistent. This is part of the reason why, one of my boundaries that I'm working on right now is doing what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. It's had to make me be a lot more intentional around my time and my energy as well. Money boundary will make you do that. A really good money boundary will make you do that. And so it's helping me, like that boundary is helping me be more consistent in the right ways. But in truth, there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen there. But I love that I'm clear enough to know like what boundary I'm going to be working on. And for me, like I take a look at, how people say, what is their word for the year? Maybe it's organization. Maybe it's unashamed. Maybe like there's so many words that people come up with. And for me, it's how can I take that word and make it into a boundary? Because consistency is doing what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it, right? And that's one of the ways that we also start to create regulation in our nervous system, is by taking a look at what we want and what we're really willing to do to get it. So for an example, I've said for a long time that I would love a Ford Explorer, right? I think it'd be a great car for me. I'm really excited to think about it and to obtain it and to have it. But I'm not willing to go rob a bank for it. Right? We have to take a look at what we say we want and all the ways that we could possibly obtain it, and what are we willing to do and what are we not willing to do. Okay? And that also will cause our nervous system to respond. Now, number one, my nervous system knows I would never go rob a bank, like ever. And so it doesn't really get scared, right? But recently, I've been trying to give these free tickets to the Art of Expansion out. And by the way, we still have a little bit of time and I still have a couple tickets left. So if you want it, let me know. But like just out and out messaging people to see if they would like one kind of made my nervous system a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's just reaching out for connection, right? It caused me to have to sit back and think like, how do I want to reach out? How do I want to connect? And how do I want this to not leave an icky taste in people's mouths, right? Because I know for me, I don't like it when somebody just like constantly is direct messaging me with sales and stuff. It's made me think I want to be someone who is a lot more intentional with the people that I connect with, right? So that means that I get to message people more often and just ask them about them and see how they're doing. So there's that, right? That's another way that I can create regulation in my nervous system is by becoming more confident and more at ease with reaching out to people. Okay. So, um, let's talk about too, like why money growth sometimes feels unsafe. And the reason being is because we're unclear. Let's just say it like it is. If money growth feels unsafe, it's because you're not clear on how to create it. We've all been there. That is not a judgment. I still find myself there sometimes, so it's totally not a judgment. Um, but I know that again, if we think back on, you know, how to make our money growth feel more safe, that still comes back down to our boundaries. Like, who do we want to be as someone with money? Like, when it comes to how we respond or act or work with money, how do we want to show up? And what actions are we willing again to take? And what actions do we need to take that are going to push us a little bit out of our lazy zone? I don't say comfort zone, I call it a lazy zone because oftentimes we know exactly what we need to do, but we're afraid to do it. And so it causes us to be complacent and lazy. But nobody feels comfortable in a comfort zone. Nobody. We're all uncomfortable there. We just don't take the action because we're afraid or we're lazy, right? And by the way, guys, that's not a judgment either. That's something I totally am saying because I see that in myself. Okay. So money doesn't feel neutral to a traumatized nervous system. It feels like a risk. Let me say that, okay? When our nervous system is in a state where we do not receive because we're afraid of what we'll get, it shuts off everything and everything tends to feel like a risk. Relationships feel risky, building a business feels risky, spending money feels risky, and those are all things that need to happen in order for us to create money. And so somewhere down inside of our subconscious, we shut off the ability to receive. So, and not only that, like, you also have to understand that when you create more money, your visibility increases, your responsibility increases, expectations increase, and your survival beliefs will surface. And you sit there and wonder things like, what if I lose it? What if it's too much? Do I deserve it? Is it like, are my prices too high? Um, I gotta work really low, a low price, and then you keep thinking that something bad is going to happen, right? And the thing is this is why, I want to say too, like one of the best things to do is to create it first and foremost in your mind. Be aware that that is what your nervous system is saying, but also be aware that that might not necessarily be the truth. Are you going to be more visible? Yes. Does responsibility increase? Yes. Do you have expectations placed on you? Yes. Right? But does that mean that you're going to lose everything? No. Does it mean that maybe you're expanding your ability to receive? Yes, absolutely. If you're expanding your ability to receive, visibility, responsibility, and expectations are increasing and you're able to handle them. So, what does the version of you, look like? How do they act if they're comfortable with the visibility, comfortable with the responsibility, and comfortable with the expectation? And guys, I'll be honest, I'm asking myself these same questions right now, right? I had to pull back a little bit on my business because I felt like I was pushing too hard. And, you know, I want to find a way that visibility and responsibility and expectations also fit. That means that not that I have to stop doing things. It means that I need to pause for a moment and reflect and create it in my mind. Remember that Mary Morrissey talks about how everything needs to be created twice. And we create things first and foremost in our mind, and then we put it into action. There has to be a blueprint before the house can go up. We have to see it in our brain in order for us to take action on it, right? And so that's what we do. We see it in our brain, and then we take action on that thing, okay? So, and I'm just thinking of a good friend of mine that actually just recently built a home, and it's gorgeous. It's lovely. I'm like, yeah, I told her, I was like, let's trade. And she giggled. But, she and her husband had to see what they wanted first before they could put it into reality. We do the same thing with our cars. We have to see what we want before we can put it into reality. Well, money is the same way. We have to see what we want and before we can put it into reality. Money is absolutely something that we can create more of, but we have to be willing to receive it in order for us to create it first. Okay? All right, my loves. Remember that if you want to create more money, one of the biggest things you're going to need to do is to step back and to really feel your capability and feel your worth and love yourself for that worth. Because your money will actually respond to your openness and your ability to receive what is good. But if you're afraid of what you'll receive, you will shut down and you won't receive anything. Okay? So, I just want to remind you that it is a bold move, a really bold move, to ask yourself when money seems to be scary, what is the universe trying to tell me? What am I trying to learn? If it lands in self-judgment, remember that's not the message you're supposed to hear. Get into self-compassion. Self-compassion is where messages really shine for you and help you find your boundary. Just similar like I'm going to front load. Like anytime I'm going to make a big purchase, I'm going to front load it. And if that purchase is something that's really, really important to me, I'm going to figure the money out. I'm going to get in and I'm going to reach out to people. I'm going to connect to people. I'm going to XYZ. I'm going to make connections. I'm going to be someone that makes connections with people because we know that relationships are key for business expansion and business growth. Even if every person we talk to doesn't necessarily reach out and come back to us with a sale, that's not the reason why we're reaching out. We're reaching out to create connection, and that's how money works. And when we're safe in connection, then money tends to come our way. All right, my loves, hopefully this was helpful for you guys today. Don't forget to get out and make those bold moves, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the Send Us a Text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.